Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing off my invasive species tank. So first on the list we've got Mr. Cray Cray. He is a rusty crayfish. The rusty crayfish is an invasive species in various parts of the United States. He came from a lake here in Illinois, as well as Mrs. Minnow. Now Mrs. Minnow is a banded killifish. She is also considered an invasive species here in Illinois, as well as various other states. And to go along with them, we have bladder snails scattered throughout the tank. Bladder snails act partially as food for Mr. Cray Cray and Mrs. Minnow here. Mrs. Minnow once in a while picks off one of the snails and just chomps on them. Get some noms. And both of them were caught in the wild not too far from where I am. I have no plans on releasing them into any lake whatsoever. They will probably live out the remainder of their lives in this tank. Although it is small, it is sufficient for now. It would be illegal for me to take these species and place them back in a lake that they did not come from. And I want to make sure that they don't have any chance of screwing up any of the other ecosystems in the Illinois area. So I'm just keeping them here basically for research. I've been trying to understand the parameters in which these little critters live. And to my surprise, they're incredibly hardy. Even if nitrites, nitrates, and ammonia are at high levels, they seem to do just fine. That being said, I do have a sponge filter so that the water quality is better than the lake that they came from. Mr. Cray Cray here just recently molted and ate most of his previous shell, I guess you would say. And some of the husk that was left over I threw away because he wasn't eating that. And Mr. Cray Cray, like most crayfish, tend to hide a little bit. But when he's out, he can be quite charismatic at times, especially if he's just molted. And if you see in the background, Mrs. Minnow is just all over the place. She's a very active little fish. So, every once in a while when I go fishing, I capture something that I didn't actually intend on catching. For instance, I was trying to catch a crayfish, like Mr. Cray Cray, and somehow accidentally ended up catching a banded killifish. I decided, what the heck, I'll study the fish. And that's how I ended up making an invasive species tank. Once again, I have absolutely no intention of releasing either of these guys back into the wild. That could be very detrimental to the ecosystems that they get introduced to. That's partially why they have so many laws regulating them, because people are taking these sorts of critters and putting them in lakes that didn't have them before, and they're taking over the place. They're out-competing native species for food sources, and they're tearing up everything they can. And the fishers tend to do this because then that creates bait. I know from first-hand experience that catfish and bass love crayfish. They make excellent live bait, so some anglers put them in waters where they like to fish so that they reproduce, and then they become abundant, and then they have bait to catch their fish. But they don't realize the harm they're doing to the ecosystem in that area by doing so. It's beneficial to the fishers, sure, but to every other critter that lives in the area, it's very detrimental. The rusty crayfish has been plaguing Illinois for over 100 years now, if you look into the details on the internet. But it's been slowly spreading, and it's been outcompeting native species of crayfish in the area for quite some time. So this little critter won't be bothering anyone in the wild anymore. He's just going to be in a tank. He's essentially an ornamental fish at this point, as well as Mrs. Minnow. And although the law is kind of sketchy on that, at least he's not doing damage, and he's pretty well taken care of. He gets fed a healthy amount of algae wafers and shrimp pellets and stuff like that, and Mrs. Minnow gets bloodworms as a treat once in a while, but mainly dines on the snails, which I get for free, because the snails are pest snails. Most fish stores that sell ornamental fish, like your pet stores and whatnot, give them away for free. And there's a number of fish that do eat these snails, so I make sure that the circle of life continues for everyone here, and that everything is not wasted. And try to do my best to kind of study these guys, because the wild critters are quite different in personality compared to the stuff you get for the aquarium world from your local store. So it's been quite fun, and it's been quite a journey keeping these two alive and seeing what they do. The tank is very small, it's 2.5 gallons, so I have to do a water change every day. Sometimes I do it twice a day, and so far they seem to be okay. Very lively, very charismatic, have strange but funky and funny personalities. And, this is a kind of tank that I don't think many people do. A lot of people have a theme for their tank and they get nice, pretty fish. I've decided to go with the exact opposite, just all purely wild critters that, well, probably aren't in a tank environment very often. So, anywho, that is Mr. Cray Cray and Mrs. Minnow signing off.